And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you an insight into a global consciousness shift that is happening all around you. Climate change, natural disasters, and crisis-driven news get their fair share of coverage in media today. But another world is rising. What we don't often hear in the mainstream is a message of hope and possibility. News repeats the same stories, giving us an illusion that the world is not changing, but it's a misconception. A shift in consciousness is evolving as citizens of the world reconnect with themselves, each other, and the Earth. I'll talk to Ed O'Sullivan, a leader in transformative education and professor at the University of Toronto, about this radical cultural paradigm change that's unfolding. Later, we'll hear from acclaimed Canadian documentarian Velcro Ripper about challenging dominant systems of power that are already starting to collapse. The world we have created is not sustainable, and whether you passively watch it or actively perpetuate it, we have entered a state of global emergency. We cannot go on with business as usual, and that's a choice each individual needs to start making. You don't have to do everything, just do something. This is Connecting the Dots.
When I consider the condition of our world, I think things are getting very complicated and more complicated than each individual person can address, and that's why we have to work together.
Some things are getting better, but some things are kind of just continuing to spiral down.
Crowded. Dicey.
Dangerous.
I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, we're making such progress with technology, but we're destroying the planet at the same time.
Out of control.
Frightening.
Better. I don't know.
More
Worse.
Authors Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone have done this exercise with tens of thousands of people in a wide range of settings. Their answers were similar to when I took the question to the streets. It is evident that people are showing high levels of alarm about our future. In their book, Act of Hope: How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy, Joanna and Chris address how we can change ourselves so that we are strong enough to fully contribute to a great shift. In doing so, we must acknowledge the state of the world. While it's a conversation that many feel is too depressing to talk about, it maintains an unspoken presence in the back of our minds, blocking our discussions from progressing and slowing our responses. How are we going to tackle this mess if we can't even talk about it? Let's acknowledge the pivotal psychological reality of our time, and then we can discuss how we want the course of our journey to go.
There's an overproduction of food in many parts of the world, but more than 1,000 million go hungry. Every 6 seconds, someone dies of starvation. About 1/3 of the world's population doesn't have access to enough safe water, and by 2025, 2/3 of the population will live under conditions of critical water scarcity. In 2007, floods in India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan were reported the worst in history, with an abnormal volume of monsoon rain killing more than 2,000 people and leaving 30 million homeless. In the same year, heat waves triggered forest fires in Greece that killed over 80 people and caused over 3,000 deaths throughout Europe. In the winter of 2009, near hurricane-force winds repeatedly battered the coast of France, and an unprecedented firestorm waged devastation in southeast Australia.
More recently, Hurricane Sandy broke records as well. The superstorm resulted in 7.5 million power outages and $50 billion worth in damages. Urban Laszlo, a philosopher of science and systems theorist, outlines more realities that we are experiencing as global citizens in World Shift 2012. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it's powerful for us to all realize this together. A TED Talk with David Roberts tries to answer the question many people ask: how high can temperatures rise before bad things start happening? Scientists and governments alike have agreed that an increase of our average global temperature by 2 degrees Celsius is the threshold. As David illustrates, we've already seen an increase of 0.8 degrees since pre-industrial times. We are now quite certainly going to easily surpass the 2 degrees Celsius threshold. If we continue on our present course, in 300 years the Earth will be too hot for humans to survive. Pesticides, pollutants, species extinction, pandemic disease, unemployment, poverty, tyranny, corruption, greed. Unsustainability is systemic. I know you probably have already heard enough, and we haven't even scratched the surface. It's easy to overlook the realities, but that's part of the problem. The devastation is not approaching. It is happening now. It isn't just going to go away either. It's necessary to connect with and feel the suffering of the Earth and its people. We are human, and that's what being a compassionate being is all about. So what can we do? Ed O'Sullivan, professor at the Ontario Institute of Studies in Education, shares what he and many others call transformative learning.
From my point of view, transformative learning is a deep order consciousness change, and it's a change that involves both, a radical change in terms of body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so we're not talking about a cognitive change. We're talking about something much more extensive, and it's a transformation. In this concept, is a transformation of consciousness. A consciousness actually for the purpose of acting in new ways, in creative ways. It's a type of learning that is actually, sort of at the cusp of a radical change in consciousness perspective. So part of the assumption of transformative learning is that, this learning process is taking place within a larger social context, a larger planetary context, actually a larger universe context. We're part of that change.
Discontent is growing against the dominant system. As Tim Jackson says, people are being persuaded to spend money we don't have on things we don't need, to create impressions that won't last, on people we don't care about. The money we spend on things in an attempt to keep up with the Joneses or feel happy goes right into the pockets of a few. And of course, you're not going to have this discussion in the mainstream because it would only lessen their control. Income inequality is growing rapidly, and the concentration of wealth at the top is alarming. Not to mention the global military expenditure stands at over $1.7 trillion. But back to the message of hope, or as Velcro Ripper asks, how can our current crisis become a love story?
Well, it's a challenge, right? Now that whole model is very insidious because it infiltrates our entire existence. It's almost like we're fish swimming in the ocean that don't even know we're in the water when it comes to that old paradigm. And this is one of the things that people found challenging about the Occupy movement, was that it wasn't just saying we need to change this law or that law. It was saying we need a complete paradigm shift. And that's clearly what we're dealing with. As Thomas Berry said in one of my really early films, we're facing a deep cultural pathology. So the challenge is that we need to wake up, watch The Matrix again and snip those cords and wake up. And the way we're going to be able to do that is by coming together in community and creating alternatives together that are like small pools within this vast ocean of a setting sun society. These values are not our values. These values of ecocide are not our values, and they're not even necessarily the values of the people in those corporations. Corporations have their own system, and it's based on quarterly profits, and it's kind of automated, and it's so destructive.
This isn't how the world has always been. It's how the world has become, and the future can be shaped by you. We won't be able to solve our problems with the same kind of thinking that gave rise to them. We need to stay awake, be present, and aware. We need to reevaluate our lifestyles, our values, our consumption patterns, and transform. Elect and hold political leaders accountable. We need to make the time to actively participate in this global consciousness shift because no one is going to solve this for us. It will take courage and strength, but many social movements needed to act with hope. Nelson Mandela said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Activism can take shape in many forms, and it doesn't suit everyone to march on the streets. But each individual can affect their communities and the people around them through their conversations and the choices they make. 2012 is a turning point. Future generations will ask you what you were doing during this time. What will you say?
As long as we're here, there's always possibilities that we might not have imagined. And we think, this is going to end it all, but there may be other ways of looking at it that can change.
Even in the worst places, the worst possible areas, hope can be found. Sure. So we can find it in the face of crisis. And I think that the answer is not isolating ourselves. The answer is not like digging a hole in the ground and trying to survive by yourself. The answer is coming together in community. That's how we're going to survive.
Every society has its protectors of the status quo, its attorneys of the indifferent, and notorious for sleeping through revolutions. Today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. Martin Luther King Jr.
For more information, visit the OccupyLove.com website or about.me/Sarah Lowe's. I'm Sarah Lowe's, and this is Connecting the Dots.